Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside the show while it's live, and there's also a PayPal link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you are new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Tim Osman, A Plain Truth, Spurs Chemo, Ranty Flat Earth, Sleeping Warrior, No Globe, Mark Doxy, Chocolate Saying, and Arwin. Big panel. How are you all doing?
Great panel.
Great.
Great to be
So
here.
I just wanted to quickly ask Tim about his first question in the other show. He was asking, how do you apply perspective to this picture? This is the confusion. There's a confusion, Tim. It's like trying to apply curvature to something that is straight, like a mathematical equation to something that is straight. So this is where the confusion is. Perspective isn't taken into account on your calculations. You've removed it. So this is where you're confused on how do you apply this idea to your globe model, which you can't. Because
the whole point actually, Spurs, was actually very much outlined. So these guys have an argument to say you guys aren't applying this here perspective, and you need to, but they don't even know how. And that I just completely wanted it.
We don't need to know how. We don't need to know how to apply perspective to your mathematics.
Have you just considered measuring the buildings? You're saying this is how far away they are. This is how tall the building is in the picture. Anybody with some calculus may be able to create a brand new formula.
Yeah, but it's not really for us to do.
Why not? You guys are trying to prove the flat Earth.
No, we're not. We're true that we don't live on a globe.
Or do you think we're trying to prove flat Earth with a curve calculator? Are you insane?
Yeah, flat Earthers do it all the time.
Yeah, we're trying to
prove that
debunk
it's
the
not a
curve
sphere,
calculator. So we're saying we've debunked the curve calculator. It doesn't include perspective. And you're saying, well, how'd you calculate it? I couldn't give a shit. It doesn't include it. Go away and include it.
it's just ridiculous, Tim.
Tell us how
We
you
don't
make
need a
rainbow.
calculator. We don't need
Hey,
a
listen.
calculator. We just need observations, and then we conclude, hey, we can see it because it's there. There's a straight line of sight at minimal observer height. There's only one way that could work out, and that is if it's flat.
They're not experimental. They're not scientific.
No, there
according
are
to
just
Nathan, though.
observations. They're very, very small systems.
They're also the
Occam's
same
razor,
measurements that
we
you
don't have
guys
to
make.
theorize
Exact same
anything. We don't
measurements.
have to make it complicated. We
Yeah, they're the
see
same
it
measurements.
because it's there. There's nothing in the way.
Yeah, you've said all
Because
that,
it's
Arwin.
flat.
So
Why
how
you talk
come
all over
how
me?
come there's a
Thanks.
300-foot right here? If you look at my screen, where's the 300 feet hill that's by the Capitol building right here?
We've gone over
Where's
this in
that
the
at?
last show,
Is it
Tim.
there?
We
I
went
don't
through
follow.
this. This is from about 3-4 feet, right? So in the 50%, before you zoom in, the 50% of the bottom half of this picture represents 5 feet of viewing angle, whereas the top half of this picture represents hundreds and hundreds of feet of viewing angle. Now, that causes compression, for a start, purely down to how the lenses work. But the problem here that we are highlighting is that your calculator only deals in absolute values, i.e. the value you get of a chimney stack when you wiki the height, not the viewing angle, because you have, obviously, perspective, an angular size reduction at distance. That's not what your calculator does. It's an absolute value calculator. And the concept of how much something measures with a tape measure when you stood right next to it is irrelevant when you're looking at it from 27 miles away. You need to account for perspective prior to putting in any curve calcs based on geometry, because we are performing viewing functions when we take a photograph, and it definitely includes perspective. We can say that unequivocally. What we can't say is your maths include perspective. They don't. So who's doing the maths here? Not me. I don't care how perspective calculates. I don't need to calculate it.
But you do care about how perspective calculates, because this has been an argument of yours for like 3 weeks now.
No, I care that you do not apply it to your curve calcs when you beg the question without any scientific evidence of the R value. That's your maths, your calculation, your presupposition, your belief in a sphere Earth that has no perspective applied to it.
Did I ever say anything about radius, though? Ever?
Sorry, do you believe you live on a sphere, Tim?
No, I know I do.
Well, that would have a radius value, would it not?
Sure.
Excellent. So, you have a radius value for your belief, Tim. Whether or not you verbalise it, I couldn't care less. I assure you, you have a fantasy belief in an R value, whether you like it or not, you crazy fantasist, you.
Okay, so does your radius of the equator...
I don't have a radius. I live on a flat plane. It never, ever, ever requires an R value, ever, for anything.
Even if you took a circle around the equator the sun makes during the equinoxes, there wouldn't be a radius to that circle?
That would be the sun,
No.
not the Earth, wouldn't it now? You're taking a measurement of the celestial object known as the sun.
You don't need a radius.
No, just the equator of the
And the
flat
equator
Earth.
is based
They're
on
not
the
an
path
equator.
of the sun.
To measure the heavenly
sorry,
body
the
angles.
equator is based
I'm
on
not
the
saying
path
that.
of the sun. So you are taking a
suggesting.
measurement of the path of the sun, not any Earth-based measurements.
So do you not believe that there's an equator even on a flat Earth?
Sorry, I'll say it one more time. The equator would be the path of the celestial object known as the sun.
Yeah. So is there an
Right,
equator on
so
a flat
has
Earth
sod
or
all to
not?
do with any radius of Earth value now, does it? Because that's a celestial object in the sky.
So is there an equator on the flat Earth model?
Yes. Yes,
Maybe.
there is.
Thank
Dunno,
you.
maybe.
Thank you.
Are we in a search there is? I have no idea. Maybe.
Yeah.
It
So
could
I
be
did
an
wanna-
arbitrary circle that people draw on the Earth, but there is no physical circle. These are just concepts. Things like equators, it's just a concept. You know, you take me to this line that you think exists. Oh, there isn't a line. Oh, you mean it's just a concept? Oh, right. Well, your concepts are irrelevant. It's just a concept, Tim.
Cool. Well, Arwen yesterday, I think he was the most, sometimes he has these brief moments of genius. And I really do appreciate you, Arwen. You did look at deep inside the rabbit holes images, and you were pretty correct about the constant movement, the 15 degree per hour that always happens on the
Yep.
Earth.
I know.
And you are also right about I think you said something about the solar filter. He's not using a solar filter
I
on
don't
that
care
drone.
about the solar filter.
which
That
Riley
doesn't interest
said-
me.
You should.
I wasn't
You
the one
should.
that brings that up.
Can I just
don't-
ask one more question, Tim? You said the 15 degrees an hour on the Earth. What do you mean by that exactly?
Observing it, the sun from the Earth, you're going to
So
see a
this-
15 degree change per hour.
Yeah.
So the sun
It's called
moves.
the angular speed.
Oh, I'll win. So the sun moves.
To the observer, yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, that wasn't my question. Like you, Tim, I know how to phrase a question. So the sun is moving, Tim?
To the observer, absolutely, yes.
No,
it's moving.
not to the observer. The sun is moving, is it?
Relative to the
The
observer,
reality
yes.
of, I think what Nathan's getting at is the reality of the situation is the sun moving.
Yes, relative to the observer, absolutely.
Sorry, physically. Is the sun stationary? Yes or no?
I don't really know, actually.
Well, it seems to move. According to you.
Something's
Yeah, relative
moving.
to the observer,
Something's
absolutely.
moving.
Okay.
It's either us or them. Which one's moving? That's the question.
Yeah, it's geocentric or heliocentric, but the shape of the Earth, the objective shape of the Earth, is known it is a sphere by all observations.
Oh, excellent. So you'd need some proof of R for that value to be
No,
spherical.
just
wouldn't
all
you?
observations. Two
No,
celestial
no.
points.
Those observations
Proof
require
of R. How do you make a
presupposition.
rainbow?
Moon.
Yeah, Tim, those
angular size of the
observations,
sun
friend.
throughout the day.
Those
There's so
observations
many more.
require a presuppositional value of R now, don't they?
No, you don't know what a presupposition is. You
Yeah, I
butcher that
do.
word
You would
continuously.
presuppose that the Earth's
you're
turning in
just
order to
trolling
make the
again.
sun move, would you
No,
not,
I'm not.
Tim? So,
Yeah, you are.
Tim, does the
I know
sun?
philosophy.
Sorry,
He
the
doesn't.
sun only moves in an apparent nature. So, if it's not the sun that's moving, why would that apparent change in the sun's location happen? What's happening to cause that, Tim?
Well, actually, the spin of the Earth, and that was proven
The
by
what? Sorry, you broke
globebusters
up.
with
You
the
broke
ring
up.
laser
Sorry, the
gyro.
what? You broke
15
up.
degrees
You broke
per
up.
hour.
You broke up. You broke up. What did you say causes
spin
the
of the
sun to
Earth.
appear to change 15
God.
degrees an hour?
Well, as globebusters has proven, 15 degrees per hour on their ring laser gyro, the spin of the Earth.
Oh, the spin of the Earth. So you have a presupposition. It's the Earth and its sphericity that causes that 15-degree change an hour. That's the, what's the word? The cause. Correct?
Tim, do you agree that the globebusters did accept that there was an apparent 15 degrees of motion, but also concluded that the magnets, a magnet would manipulate the results, therefore indicating that what we were observing or measuring was some electromagnetic effect rather than a physical movement?
I'm glad you brought that up because actually I have a friend that went to the showing of the documentary, and what Bob doesn't know yet because his friends haven't told him is that they had a boom mic listening to him talk to a certain flat earther at one point, and Bob is actually explaining how this was bad for flat Earth, how they keep trying to do different tests to basically negate the fact that they keep getting this same result of the 15 degrees per hour. So this will all be here for everyone to see once that
Oh,
movie.
that's no problem at all, because I can just smash that into the ground right here on this show, if that is the case and he said it's bad for flat Earth. Because that 15-degree turn per hour would require a presupposition that you're on a sphere if that's the thing that's causing the sun to turn. I.e., if that is the cause, then the presuppositional value of R is the cause of the 15-degree turn per hour. So that would require a bit of proof of R now, wouldn't it, Tim?
No.
No. So the presupposition that it's the sphere Earth turning doesn't require any evidence of it being a sphere, i.e. the radius value. That's interesting. You can just assert it anyway. It's not a presupposition even though you're asserting it's the sphere Earth causing that 15-degree turn. That's very interesting, Tim. It sounds like you've got some strange idea of yourself about what a presupposition is, my friend. A presupposition is where you predetermine the cause of the effect, as opposed to establishing a scientific cause. Now, for that, you'd need some proof of the R value that you have decided is the cause of this 15 degrees an hour. Interesting that, isn't it? Your presuppositional value of R that you all adhere to, even though you think not using it or talking about it means that you don't believe in it, Tim. I assure you, you do.
Tim's happy. He has one tiny little thing that
Well,
that
I'm glad you,
may
Arwen, you're smart
actually
enough to understand that.
block the disk Earth modelers from taking the heavenly bodies as physical objects moving over a disk, and that is the constant angular speed of the sun over its pathway in relation to the observer. And he thinks that that is automatic a win for the globe, because the globe uses the same foundation to assume through R and through all of their nonsense that it is the sun ball moving in a path around the Earth, well, rather the Earth is spinning underneath it. And so he just loves that we cannot, well, that the disk Earthers cannot dispel this because of the constant angular speed. But yeah, that win is not going to help you because you still have no proof of R or G or any of that. It just makes the mystery of what
he thinks it's a win, even though not only is it like him accusing us of taking selective information from people like NASA, so suddenly Bob's information validates his nonsense, which I think is brilliant. So suddenly Bob's right, is it? This is really damaging. Nah, Nah, it just needs somebody to come along like us and point out that it's all based on a presuppositional value of R. That even though you don't talk about it, Tim, it's still in effect, mate. Sorry, you're a believer. You've got a religious
How does the ring laser
faith.
gyro have anything to do with the radius of the Earth?
Because the 15 degrees an hour turn of the Earth presupposes you have a turn of the sphere Earth.
You don't know what you're
Therefore
talking
requires an R value. Am I speaking slowly enough for you, Timothy?
You don't know anything about ring laser gyros.
Oh, well, I know that if they're showing 15 degrees an hour, that obviously proves the presupposition that it's the sphere Earth causing it. Yeah, right, mate. What kind of an idiot are you? Sorry,
Arwen,
did you just tell me that I don't
this is
understand
Come on,
presupposition,
let's ask this question,
Tim?
Nathan.
Was that what you asserted,
Arwen.
that I don't understand a presupposition? Man, you've got egg on your face properly now, haven't you? Don't you understand that in order for the 15 degrees an hour of Earth turn, spherical Earth turn, would need it to be a sphere that you presupposed, Tim? You don't get that? That's why I asked you what's causing the 15 degrees, mate. You were just too slow to pick up on the reason for my question.
Okay, cool. So anyway,
Yeah, cool. You got a value of R that you believe in. You're a religious believer, Tim. It's
he's
very
just like
amusing.
a child, man.
I'm not a child.
Sad.
I know you're a religious believer. You don't even know.
Okay, go ahead.
You don't even know where you need to believe in R. You think that the 15 degrees an hour doesn't require R because you're a Mongol.
All right, I think he's done,
You
Arwen.
guys,
So anyway,
you guys brought up.
I'm
hang
not
on,
done.
You guys brought
I
up
haven't
anyway,
finished
hold on, I've
ridiculing
been
you
going
yet.
for
Please
5
ask his
minutes, you
question to me.
clown.
I want to know what he has to
four-
ask.
Good lord.
The four You guys brought up the four
Hey, dummy.
equinoxes.
Mark,
Dummy, I'm
come on.
talking.
What is
So
your
are you
question?
proposing that the sun is metaphysical, Arwen? Please explain that. You say it might not be physical. Metaphysical would be the
What
next
do you
thing,
mean
right?
with metaphysical?
You know what metaphysics are.
I'm sorry, why are you asking Arwen a question? I've made quite a few
No,
assertions
I-
just
no,
now.
I-
Arwen,
I'm
just
fine
hold on
with
one
him
second.
asking me a question.
Because I'm
So-
asking, because I've got him on the ropes, and now rather than address my issue that I
Yeah,
have,
that's-
he's
you-
asking
you-
you a
come on.
question just so
It's
he knows,
obvious you
because he
got
knows
him,
damn
okay?
well that he can use you against me, Arwen, because he knows you won't shut the hell up. Because he's now laughing at you, Arwen, because he knows that as soon as he introduces you, he'll manage to get you to argue with me, and he won't have to actually address the point I've made about R, and you won't shut the hell up.
Go on, guys.
So,
Right,
Tim's gone
thanks for
now.
that,
Now he's
Nathan.
realised that I've
Thanks a
identified
lot.
the trick that you fell for, Arwen, so thanks a bunch.
Trick that I felt he was just.
Yeah, he set you against me, and you fell for it hook, line, and sinker because he's recognised that you won't shut your mouth at the moment.
I won't shut my mouth. Look
Yeah,
who's
you
talking
talked
here.
all over me at the point that I had him on the ropes. Yeah, because he decided to ask you a question. So in your own self-importance, you thought my question from Tim is the most important thing here, not recognising the fact that I had his toes to the fire about his belief in
He
art.
does recognize it. I'm getting kind of tired of not being able to just have some panel time here and have people ask me questions that I.
Oh right, sorry, I didn't realise this was the Arwen question time.
Okay, so it is just you. Just
No,
you.
I
You're
was
just here
addressing
as
something
filler.
with Tim Osman, had his toes to the fire, and then when he asked you a question, you decided,
You had
oh right,
over
well
10 minutes.
that Tim's question to me is much more important than Nathan holding his toes to the fire. I'll answer his question. And then he laughed because he knew what he was doing. All he had to do was wind you up and let you go, and you'd talk all over me rather than letting me actually hold him to account for his belief in art.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to take a break from this show because you're being extremely intolerant of me. I'm getting kind of sick of this. So I'll see you around.
Well, sorry, Arwen, you feel that way. That's unfortunate. So, now that Arwen's gone, I'll round out that point. Tim Osman, regardless of whether or not he realises it, has a belief in an R value. That belief is based around 15-degree turns an hour from ring laser gyros and the stars. Without a presupposition of R, he doesn't have an Earth turning to cause that. That's what he requires. Just doesn't realise it. It's too dumb.
You know, since it got a little quiet, if you could bring up the four equinoxes, the fact that you cannot see four different constellations in the four different equinoxes, since the Earth rotates around the sun. Or I could be disconnected.
You're a bit quiet. Can you repeat that?
Why don't you just talk us through it? Why don't you talk us through your thought on the equinox?
What I was hoping for was that during the 4 equinoxes, we should see 4 different constellations in the heavens, because the Earth is moving around the sun, and on that trip, we would see 4 different constellations in the 4 different equinoxes. But we don't, because it's
Right.
flat.
That's because they're all tidal law. Rate, gravity, negation, where everything that we should expect, like you're saying, yes, we should expect 4 different views. The reason why we don't is the same reason why we only see one face of the moon. It's because it's tidal locked. So our solar system is traveling with us and is locked in with us so that we always see the same set of stars.
Yeah, the great attractor is sucking the entire universe with it, right?
That's what it has to be. There's no other reason for it. It has to be simply a metaphysical calculation of theoretical science for something that we don't understand, because we should be seeing 4 different views. But since we don't, well, what can we think of? What could be the reason?
You know, it's as long as it comes out, it's a ball. I had this argument with another person who claimed to me that what difference does it matter how much you tilt the camera? Your eyes are better than the camera, yada, yada. But regardless of that, as long as it comes out that the answer is it's a ball, you guys really don't care how you got there. Honest to God, you don't care. You're willing to get to you're willing to get to suppositions that in a gazillion years we're going to hit the great attractor. Okay? But until then, it's got to be that. It can't be flat as a pancake, can it?
No, because they need their fairy tale.
Well, look at it this way. Galileo was under house arrest. I mean, look at that story. Who got house arrest before Galileo? And why would the church ever use its own printing presses to write something it completely disagreed with? When has the church ever done that before our famous hero Galileo? Can you answer that? Without, I don't know, there had to be a reason. Okay? Can you come up with what was that reason?
Sure.
Yeah, I know. So let's forget Galileo. That's because
How can I even know Galileo actually existed? That could just
whether
be a
he
story.
existed or not is a completely different ballgame. Okay, I
I
could
know.
care less. I could care less if
It's his
Mr.
story.
Magoo. I could care less if Mr. Magoo existed or not either. Okay, I mean he was fun to watch as a kid, but that's about it, right? So if we don't know why the church, what happened to Galileo, because it doesn't add up, let's forget Galileo. Let's forget Copernicus. Now, without those 2 morons diluting your judgment, why
There's a
is it a
fake
ball?
Ranty in here.
Why is it a ball?
Because they ignore perspective and have curve maths that delude the world, and when they get caught out, they demand that the flat earthers come up with the equation.
Why not? This is how you got us to fly around the moon.
Yeah, they needed a assumed value of r to plan their, let's put it in quotes, trajectories around the sphere Earth. You know what I mean? It's all nonsense built on nonsense built on nonsense.
You know, to be perfectly honest with you, I would have loved the unedited tapes between Yuri Gagarin and the tower below. What actually was said. Because at some point, the guy must have looked down and said, guys, it's flat. As a pancake.
Maybe.
Just before he slammed into the firmament. You know, if he was up there for a while, he had to be in a high altitude balloon. Anybody ever think of that? So they knew ahead of time. They knew before they shot that bastard up there.
Oh
That
yeah,
it's
of course
flat
they
as a
did.
pancake.
I think they knew long before.
The question is, when did they actually know?
Yeah, that is the big question, and it's probably when they did Operation Fishbowl, when they did the Apollo moon landing.
Oh, they knew by then. By then they
by
knew.
Fishbowl,
Okay,
50s, I reckon.
50s, yeah.
Yeah.
I reckon it's that it goes. It probably goes back to that that document, the NASA document, where they describe the what is it now? I don't want to get this wrong. They describe the Earth as flat and motionless, and it was calculating or explaining the trajectory of rockets over a flattened stationary plane or something like that. They knew then. For me,
Are you talking about the gyroscope, right?
Just
No.
just for the audience's benefit, we are not taking this NASA document to be any sort of proof of flat Earth. We are just establishing at what stage we think, as a guess, just to spitball, NASA knew. Now, we don't know this is true, and we don't take it as proof of anything. So we're not selectively picking our
Do you want
evidence
to go
when
on
we discuss
the
this.
conception that the moment NASA was formed, they knew right then and then?
No.
They already knew by then?
No, I think that remember the history of what happened with NASA. They had a lot of failed rocket attempts where the rockets went up and didn't do anything. They blew up or didn't quite get the height that they needed, or otherwise they couldn't control them and they crashed, whatever. But when they got the Apollo moon landing missions that we were told was where they went to the moon, I think that's where they, just prior to that, was where they realized that there was a ceiling. And that's probably the best explanation, in my opinion, for the Operation Fishbowl, where they were trying to blow hell out of everything up there because they were testing it to see what it was. What is this thing up here? Because why otherwise would you send nuclear bombs or massive, large yield missiles to blow up there? What would be the purpose of exploding them up there there would be no reason to explode them up there. But
Well,
they were doing
you're assuming. Well, now you are doing that. Now you're assuming that's true. It's like, why is that any more or less true than the moon landings? It's come from the same source. So, you don't have to assume that that part of the narrative is true to assess the narrative and how it's been put out. It doesn't mean they have actually shot nuclear weapons up there, is my point.
But is it okay if I justify that view by saying, well, Mark Sargent said it was true on Under the Dome, therefore I'm accepting it? Or
well, if Mark Sargent said it, then absolutely we're allowed to accept it as consensus.
I think
having a laugh. No.
All hail King Mark.
No. Tim Osman has this argument with us, and he's right. When people will say, oh, well, they shot something at the moon and it rang. Did they? Or did they go to the moon? Oh, they didn't go to the moon, but they did shoot something at the moon to get it to ring, and you'll accept that part of the story, will you? No. Oh, they shot stuff up at the dome, and it... No, I don't accept any of it. I mean, I'm happy to discuss that part of the history narrative, but I just see it as a narrative. I don't see it as any of it being factually verified in any way, shape, or form, because the source is discredited.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing you would shoot a nuclear bomb. That's like a fish shooting at the walls of the aquarium. All right, if them puppies blow, what's going to happen to the fish?
Do you believe in nuclear weapons then? Because I don't.
I don't either.
That's the other story.
Hey Riley.
Yo.
The other day in Skype, I posted a document that I had found. I was listening to some documentary.
Who's rattling rappers?
And I don't know.
That's me.
Maybe Alan. Oh, okay.
That's actually me, right?
And it's a NASA document from I think it was 1988.
Hey, Unorthodox.
Derivation
Hello.
of linear flight, right?
Yeah.
And twice in this document, in the introduction and in the summary, they describe the Earth as a
that's the one I'm referring to. Yeah.
Flat surface. Yeah, that's the one you're talking about.
Yeah, that's the one I'm referring to. That document.
Yeah, that isn't that insane, man? Because because I had just found I didn't know about that document, and I just found out today, and I'm trying to read it.
Well,
And yeah, right there, plain English.
Me personally,
they're describing the Earth as flat and non-rotating.
Me personally, I think that you know when they talk, right, just humor me a minute. If you let a balloon that's got enough slack in it, but it's filled with helium, if it's got enough slack in it, it should never burst, because although the helium will expand as you let it go up, if there's enough slack in the balloon, it should keep going up and up and up. And I don't see any reason why that balloon, if there was enough slack in it and enough helium, I don't see why it would ever not get into space as they describe it to us. In other words, I'm contradicting the idea that there's something called escape velocity. But that escape velocity, the fact that that thing exists, means that for me, you've got to catapult yourself out of this place, because there comes a point where rockets no longer work. So you have to catapult yourself up and use the velocity to get you out of it. Because conceptually, a helium balloon should get you high enough if there was enough slack in it and enough helium, because it would continue to rise and rise and rise. And I think what happened at some point in the late 60s, early 70s, they got high enough with these rocket testing that essentially, and I know that I'm going to paraphrase this and I say it lightly, don't quote me on it, but it's as if they got high enough and they saw a big pair of beady eyes looking down on us, kind of thing, and they realized that there was something up there, whatever it might be. Because I don't see any explanation for, and I know Nathan says that take it with a pinch of salt, but I think Operation Fishbowl probably was a genuine operation, that they probably were sending up long-range ballistic missiles to blow up to see what would happen if, because it wouldn't put it past the Americans, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but if they found that there was a dome up there, I can see the Americans being stupid enough to go and blow hell out of it to see if they could get a hole in it, because that's what Americans like.
The views of Anthony Riley do not reflect the views of the rest of the panel. Just to drop that in.
Say again?
So the views of Anthony Riley do not reflect the views of the rest of the panel?
Sure. It's my own views on it. That, without more, that's what I think probably happened. We got high enough. They realized that there was something up there that we didn't realize that was there before. And then they wanted to blow shit out of it. And then they realized that it was there for our protection. And it's just like, it is just my views.
Tony,
I'm American. I'm
Tony,
American.
what exactly are you smoking?
They're the facts that we're told. Operation Fishbowl apparently did happen. And that
Big beady eyes in a fishbowl?
No,
Operation Fishbowl.
What I said, Alan.
Operation Fishbowl.
You didn't listen to what I said, Alan. Go back and listen to what I actually said. What I'm saying is,
big beady eyes, though.
Prior to the rockets, the unsuccessful rocket launches, sooner or later, NASA were going to get one that was successful. And I think that when they did, it was probably late 60s. And when they got up high enough, they realized that there was something there that they didn't know that was already there. And all of a sudden started blowing hell out of the upper atmosphere for no apparent reason. Well, why would anybody do that? And for me, it's the perception that there's something there that they want to test. They want to see what happens if, because that seems to be what they were doing. Now, I mean, it's just my own views on it, but that is where I'm at.
And did it all that happen supposedly right after Admiral Byrd supposedly came back from his Antarctic expedition and all that? And he went on TV and had his interview.
It was around about that same decade. I don't know the exact times of it, but it's around in and around that area. Yes.
Yeah, because after that interview, that's when, like, I don't remember the exact year, but the treaty was formed, and then I think Fishbowl was right after that, or maybe before that. I'm not too sure. But yeah. That's definitely crazy. But how is it cool that NASA can come out with a document that just describes the Earth as flat and non-rotating? That's what.
Yeah, the mere
that's the question that.
The mere fact that document exists and is basically ignored because they use the word context. They say, "Oh, well, it's just in the context of this document." That the mere fact that the document exists for me, it is a clue.
I mean, clue. Why would you ever describe the Earth as flat and non-rotating if that's not what we live on at all?
Because that's what you do in science. You have a very complicated model, and in order to use it and simplify it, so other people can understand it without taking years and years to study it, you simplify the model.
Hey Pete.
Right. So that's why they did that.
The model
Nathan.
instead of using the model
Hello,
of what
hello.
the Earth actually is.
Yes.
Why?
For
Is that the
simplification
same reason-
purposes.
Is that the same reason that like the FAA and they all design their flights on a flat plane? How does that help
what they do
flying
is
on a ball?
What they do is they take a spherical coordinate system and then they relate it to a flat plane. I was watching the show where you guys presented that. They specifically talked about the Earth being a globe and how you can take that and project it two-dimensionally. So,
well, why would you do that if you're on a globe?
To simplify it.
Why would
to make it
simplify
simpler.
But why would it
Because
simplify
most people aren't capable of understanding all that complex stuff. They need
make
a
it
full
simple
model
for who?
It's a NASA document.
for the operators, for the people that are doing the calculations, for the people who are doing looking at the flights.
Why would you need to do that? These people aren't stupid. Why would you need to simplify it for them?
Wow, just call yourself
Because
Miyagi.
science is complicated. It takes years and years to understand these ideas sometimes.
They fucking pissed me off.
Right?
Oh, sorry.
Pete,
I didn't realize I was
think
open.
you're causing
Sorry.
some feedback.
I mean, just
Pete.
the fact
Can you
that
stay
there's
on
only
mute?
one document, I'll give you a little bit of a hint, and there's millions of documents saying it's a globe. You find one document's referencing flat Earth to simplify it. Then I'll give you a little bit of hint there. It's not
the document happens to be talking about flight, right? The problem is that every time a real world occurrence is needed, right? When we're talking about people making buildings, surveyors, flights, every time it actually counts, there's no curvature. It's always described as flat. So why is that?
Hold on just a second. I'll tell you. Let me shut this door.
Why
daughter-
why
my
are
daughter's
pilots
no-
trained? Why are pilots trained on simulators that simulate the Earth is flat? If they have to learn how to fly on a ball,
Because
does
scale, right?
Explain to me scale.
You have any idea how complicated it is? If you take the fact that the Earth is a globe and you set a model, a coordinate system based on the Earth, it is extremely, extremely complicated. Where is the center of the Earth? You have to define every, essentially inch of the Earth to make it accurate. It's very, very complicated just to set up a coordinate system, a three-dimensional coordinate system that has basically the center of the Earth as its 0 point for the axis. It's complicated, man.
I mean, you're right. I guess it is complicated.
Activate your
when you have to
imagination.
fly planes upside down and shit.
Why would it need to be upside down? That's so funny. I just like to say
that's what happens on your model, though.
There's two possibilities here, right? Either the Earth is flat, and this is why all of these pilots, etc., train on a flat Earth basis, or else we can go with your imagination. We can develop our imaginations, and everything we believe and hold dear then will be against everything that we can experience sensually. Right?
That's not true, and I'm not going against my imagination. I'm trained as a mechanical engineer.
It's too complicated.
Kinetics.
Well, me too. I
you
qualified as a mechanical engineer, right? So
you fall in for the silly.
So you know
it's
about
too
kinetics.
Complicated for you to understand argument.
Do what?
It's too complicated. The scale is too big. You'll never understand the math. You'll never understand anything.
That's what you do. That's what you do in science. You take something that's extremely complicated, and in order to make it easier to understand and applicable in more situations to more people, you simplify it to as simple as you can possibly get it.
That's not what you do in science. Science establishes cause and effect relationships. It's not designed to simplify anything. It's not the necessity to simplify things. There are parameters that you have to work around in science, but it's establishing a cause and effect relationship. So that's what science is.
Yeah, but I mean, you guys know this. The scale of the Earth. Why would you need to take into account the curvature. If you have a GPS system and you can go from point A to B, what purpose would that serve to
Hang on,
somebody?
if you're traveling at max speed, you have to cater for a curved earth more than ever. You can't just assume
No,
that.
there's something called
Any
gravity.
directional change, you have to encounter a curve, especially if you're traveling at thousands of miles per hour. So it's nonsense, absolutely nonsense what you're talking.
Well, I mean, you could
Yeah,
only
if
see
I was a
7
pi-
miles.
if I was a
basically on
pilot,
each point in
I
Earth,
think
right?
if I was a pilot, I think at the point I'd have to ask, why is it if we live on a globe, why am I being taught to fly on a flat plane?
Yeah.
Why don't we have simulators
You're not being
for a
taught.
globe?
You're being taught to fly on a globe. It's just so big that you assume it's a flat plane.
Nonsense.
Right?
What a load of rubbish.
And you guys talk about. You made one of the most silly arguments the other day. What is it? Chocolate saying, talking about, well, if a skyscraper is in front of me, why am I not attracted to the skyscraper? How much mass do you think a skyscraper is? Like, what, the entire skyscraper is like maybe 10% full, probably less than that. The entire skyscraper is mostly empty space, right? So we know the Earth to be at least 8 miles deep based on y'all's measurements. So just think about, like 1,000 feet around the building, how much Earth is below it compared to that skyscraper. It's absolutely nothing.
So what you're telling me is if we took Earth out of the equation,
I'm just talking about the dirt,
flying
not
toward.
Do what now?
I would just go fly towards the building because
Yeah, I
we
mean, if
took
you
Earth
removed
out of the
Earth and you
equation.
removed other massive objects, but I mean, it would
Right.
be you'd have
because
to.
that happens in real life, right?
Sorry,
Let me
does
ask
this
you guys
guy-
something.
Sorry,
Yeah,
can I just
yes,
ask
it
an
does happen in
orthodox
real life, right? You can do
question?
the Cavendish experiment. Your
Sorry,
weight changes
just
as
to
you
be
move
direct,
up.
orthodox.
How did
Once you step
Cavendish?
over a
How did
line-
Cavendish?
Sorry to interrupt you
How
both. I
did
just need to
Cavendish,
establish something with orthodox.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Do you think that gravity is the attraction of masses?
Yes, you know that. You know that's what I think.
No, that was debunked by Einstein. Didn't you know that that's not actually what
Einstein is an
gravity is?
interpretation of what gravity's effect is. You can describe it
Sorry,
multiple
gravity
ways.
is the bending of space-time and not the attraction of masses. Did you not
No,
know
it's an
that?
effect. If you want, I don't think we're going to get into Einstein.
Sorry,
You can
did you
kind
say
of relate it
effect?
two different ways.
Oh no,
right?
no!
You
It's
can talk
definitely
about
not an
it in terms of
effect.
forces, or you can talk about it in terms of the bending of space time. You can talk about it in essentially two different ways.
No, they're two different things that are mutually exclusive.
One is
They are not the same thing.
Einstein is about a development on Newton, so it's completely separate and a completely different.
No.
explanation
Newton was
of
the
what gravity
basis
actually
for
is.
his calculations. At low speeds, Newton's calculations are approximations for Einstein's. They're virtually indistinguishable. We went to the moon based
totally
on
different.
Einstein's equations. They
One
didn't
is
take
the
in-
attraction of masses, the other is the bending of space-time. These two concepts are different.
No.
They're fundamentally different.
They're different interpretations, but they can be looked at as fundamental. You can understand them in either way. Either one's very valid.
Both assume that the Earth is moving, right? Newton was the first to assume the Earth is moving. Without question, everything is based on the Earth moving. Einstein took it further then, but still based on the Earth moving, when, of course, when you bring it back to basics, there's absolutely no proof that the Earth is moving. And indeed, we know in our hearts that the Earth isn't moving beneath our feet.
What do you mean? If you drop an object, it falls at a rate of 9.8 meters per second squared. If the Earth isn't a globe, it's moving it's accelerating at a rate of 9.8 meters per second.
No. Hang on. That's an observation, right? That's an observation. We have yet to come to the proper causes behind this phenomenon.
I mean, if something's moving and we're not moving on the Earth. But if I take an object and drop it, it'll go towards the Earth. If it's not a globe and it's not gravity, then we must be moving up. Right?
No. Actually, what's happening is Arvin is right. Arvin is correct. Gravity isn't a pulling force; it's a pushing force. We live under a barrier between us. Someone mentioned Operation Fishbowl. The clue is always in the name, right? It's water everywhere. We live under a barrier and under a force that was never meant for us.
What about meteorites?
Under a pushing force down. This is what separates the layers within our realm here.
Yeah, I would disagree. What about meteorites, though? Right? There's a dome. Space doesn't exist. How do we get meteorites? Remember the great Russian meteorite a few years ago? All those thousands of cameras, all that footage of the Russian meteorite.
No. I want an answer from the flat earthers for orthodox's question. Can you repeat it, orthodox?
What do you want?
Just repeat your question.
I was just asking about, what's y'all's explanation of meteorites, right? You don't believe space exists, but these rocks come flying in. You see shooting stars. There is a very, very clear example of this from the Russian meteorite. All the dash cams from Russia, thousands and thousands of them from independent people.
Unorthodox.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Real quick to go back to the Cavendish. How did Cavendish negate the gravity of Earth as one of the variables in his experiment?
Because he said it perpendicular. Earth's gravity acts downward.
Yeah, and it still acted downwards on the experiment.
No, the experiment set up perpendicular to gravity.
So it was set up perpendicular. It was
Yes,
still
at a 90-degree angle.
It still had the force of gravity acting.
If you have a spinning platter on a table and you spin it, gravity's not really affecting the spinning of the plate because it's perpendicular to gravity.
I'm trying to understand. Balls in a shed. He's got balls hanging from a shed. How does he take away the Earth pulling on those balls, the gravity of the Earth? How does he negate that factor?
He doesn't.
I just told you. He sets it up perpendicular to gravity.
He doesn't.
Gravity acts downward. He didn't set the balls up to move up and down. He set them up.
Yeah, I know that.
In an arc perpendicular to the gravity.
Yeah, but it still has. He hasn't isolated gravity of Earth. He's presupposing it. It's a formological fallacy. Gravity, then objects of mass attract. Objects of mass attract. Look, this Cavendish experiment shows it. Therefore, gravity. But first and foremost, he hasn't isolated it from any of the net effects of the force he's trying to measure.
It's
not that he's measuring that force. He's measuring objects of mass on a torsion bar, dangling from a shed. So he's not really measuring any natural phenomena. He's conjured the natural phenomena by virtue of a formological fallacy.
Man didn't exist, Nathan. Cavendish didn't exist. It's all storytelling. And the clue is always in the name Cavendish. What can you make out of the name Cavendish? Think about it.
Give me that. Don't give me this crap. Come on, man.
It's not crap, man. Shut your mouth. Everything you're talking.
Give me a decent argument, not some argument based on the guy's name.
But Pete, you're saying Cavendish doesn't exist, but you just moments earlier told us that there is basically a narrative come from NASA that is a narrative about things going into the sky and giving you a pressurized system. So you're taking NASA as proof of something. I don't really understand why you do that and then simultaneously say Cavendish doesn't exist. If you're going to take their narrative in one part of history, i.e. Fishbowl, why wouldn't you take Cavendish as real?
I don't, Nathan. I don't believe Fishbowl is another clue for us. It's like Admiral Byrd, Richard E. Byrd, Dick E. Byrd. I haven't heard of Dickie Byrd. This is the clue for us. This is
What's that to do with the fishbowl? I don't get it.
Fishbowl? Well, fishbowl, we're fish in a bowl of water. Like the Pink Floyd song. It's water everywhere.
How do comets work if we're in a fishbowl and water's above us? Or if there's a, what do you call it? I forget the name of the dome. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But, how would comets work in that scenario? There are just so many things, guys. I'm sorry. The more I talk about this, the funnier it gets because
it's ridiculous, man. How does it work in your model?
How ridiculous they say.
How does it work in your model, in your chaotic model?
You can't see past 7 to 8 miles virtually on the entire face of the Earth. That fact alone pretty much tells you it's not.
You can't what?
Can't see beyond 7 to 8 miles.
Can't see beyond 7 to 8 miles. On any ocean surfaces, the ocean covers 70% of the Earth. So
what are you talking about? Do you not watch this show? The amount of observations that we've shown that are beyond 7 miles is untrue. Why would you ever assert that you can't see beyond 7 miles? That seems like the most stupid comment I've ever heard.
From Braehead in Dublin, and that is nearly 60, 70 miles.
Yeah, but that's one instance, though.
No, it's not.
Do you not watch this show?
It's not one instance.
No, it isn't one instance. There's plenty of examples like that. Where have you been?
Maybe
You're one of your arse, man, all your life.
No, but maybe one. I mean, that's why boats disappear beyond
the horizon. The imagination of others. You haven't even your own imagination to apply to anything. Just
all I need is logic. I don't really, imagination
basing it on logic. If you're not gone out and looked,
it's just logic.
You're asserting something based on visual docs, mate. Just listen. You're saying you can only see 7 miles, but you're saying you're basing that on logic rather than going and looking.
Yeah.
What do you mean going and looking? That's what
going and having a look. Like we present on this show all the time, stuff that's way beyond 7 miles. But you're saying based on logic, because I assume an R value and think I'm on a sphere, we can't see beyond 7 miles. But we can.
Yeah.
In very rare
Yeah, you
cases.
just make
Nathan.
yourself sound
Nonsense.
very stupid.
Nonsense. And Nathan, this is
What do you mean?
You
That's
just
a
made
fact.
yourself
You
sound
can't
real
see
Nathan,
beyond
this is
7
the-
8 miles, generally speaking, in 85 to
Generally
95% of the cases, right? Am I wrong?
Right.
if
Right.
you
So
bring
every observation that's happened more than 7 or 8 miles is just some type of anomaly, right? Something
Yeah.
crazy was
Well, I
happening
mean,
in the
if
atmosphere.
95% of cases
Cities
that's
are
not
being
true,
leaned
then
up,
yes,
right?
by definition, it
Back
is
from
an
curves.
anomaly,
another
right?
time waster, this guy. Another time waster.
Right.
And can I just say, Nathan, you talk about
Hold on,
but let's bring it down to a more local level, right?
Let him finish the
Ballers have
argument.
to, excuse me, man. Ballers have, when you're looking out over the beach at eye level, that whatever you're looking at, there's a limit set of 3 miles. They have to accept that, because if they don't, then they're screwed, right? Because then all different manner of optical effects have to be taken into account. This is something that they have to go with. It's their Achilles heel. Presupposition, as you
there's
say,
no
but we can bring
Achilles.
down the presupposition of
You guys
art
have to
to a local level, to a level we can all relate to.
You're absolutely right, Pete. That's exactly what it's about. Where unorthodox thinks you can only see 7 miles, what he actually means is the horizon on the globe model is very close. But that's why we're having this argument about angular size reduction at distance, because there's a target of a bulge in the near foreground and potentially a target of a lighthouse that's much smaller versus that target in the foreground. But they don't want to account for
that's just
perspective.
an anomaly by definition, Nathan. That's only like 1 or 2 instances. You know, that's an anomaly by definition. It's the odd man out.
It only needs to happen once for you to give you suspicion that things might not be right.
No, it'd have to happen 10, 20, 30 times.
Oh, really? So if you get knifed in the stomach, you go, well, might not be a problem. But if you get knifed repeatedly, then you might go to the hospital.
Well, no, there's always anomalies. You know, I mean, right?
Anomalies,
you know,
you can't have anomalies inside.
Just been stabbed in the stomach. I'll just call it an anomaly. Maybe it'll go away. I'm sure this won't last. It's not going to get worse with time. Oh no, I've just been stabbed 10 more times. This maybe isn't an anomaly after all.
Listen, Lewis Hackett said to me, the true scientific method is trying to disprove every theory that you hold dear at every step. And I asked him, how has he tried to disprove the globe earth theory? And he said he hadn't. You can bet the same applies to each and every one of it. All flat earthers have tried to disprove the globe earth theory, and they have succeeded, right? At every step of the way. Off you go, unorthodox. How have you tried to disprove
how
the globe
come
earth
we
theory?
went from
The true
believing that the
scientific
earth was flat to believing it was round, right? We used
No,
to
that's storytelling from his history, right? So I'm asking you, how have you tried to
currently the
disprove
current model is
globe earth
globe,
theory in the true scientific sense? You say you're a mechanical engineer. In the true scientific sense, how have you tried to disprove the globe earth theory?
Have I tried to disprove it?
How have you?
I've been arguing with you guys. I've been looking into all this
That
stuff.
at
You guys
every
don't
step
give
of the
me
way,
any
you are
documents.
trying to disprove your theory, and by failing to disprove it, it garners its strength.
But
you guys
you
don't have
don't
any
realize how
arguments at all. I haven't
ridiculous
heard
you
one
are
good
when you
argument.
come. Dude, you don't realize how ridiculous you sound when you come here and you say we don't see anything past 7 to 8 miles. When dudes on this panel every day are coming in here with observations
I've
30,
seen
40
one.
miles away.
I've seen one.
Maybe you
I
should
mean, of
watch the
course,
show.
if you
bro.
go up, right, you can see farther. I've only seen one presentation on this show, and it was the Isle of Man, where you could see past, you know, a large distance. And of course, there's going to be, you know, terrain. There's going to be.
But
If you
why are
go
we
up
seeing that
even
if we
further-
can't see past 7 miles? You know, there's a big difference
you
between
know
7
what
miles and
refraction
30
is, right?
miles. Oh,
Refraction's a
here we
thing,
go.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so many things, guys. Well, I want to hear what you guys think about
How
meteorites.
how does
What do you think about
refraction bring
meteorites?
an entire city back up from a curve when it's supposed to be gone? How does refraction do that?
What city? Chicago, where it
I don't know.
it's not
What
there
name
half
a
the time.
name one. Name one
Well,
that's
there's the
far
famous.
enough away. Because
You
there are
never
plenty
see.
of pictures. There are plenty of pictures out there with
No, there's
cities
not.
and mountains and all. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
One of the first debates I
You're
saw with
ridiculous,
Nathan
man.
Oakley, a gentleman came on and he showed pictures of New York, the New York skyline, as you moved away from the skyline, and as it was successive pictures showing that the tops or that the buildings disappeared gradually, and I mean it was so distinctly clear, and it perfectly matches living on a globe, right? The
Because you must
closer you get, the
assume that
more
the horizon
No,
only extends
I live in New York, and I
degree.
see the city from all over New York. Okay, doesn't matter how
Because
far
they're
away
tall
I am.
buildings,
If
right?
I'm looking at the right angle, I could see the buildings. Right, they're not
Have you
leaning
ever
away
went out on the ocean
away from
New
me.
York?
There's no bulge. Right, I could see the Statue of Liberty, insane amounts of miles away. I don't know the number exactly, but it's far enough that I know that I probably shouldn't see the Statue of Liberty, but I do every day. It's there, flat,
No,
in front of
because
my
there's
face.
skyscrapers everywhere
There
in
you
New
go.
York.
You both got equally valid arguments. Excellent that you had that discussion on account of the fact that you're equally valid in terms of just asserting it. So unless you're prepared to dig out your curve maths, unorthodox, for us to say, excuse me, this maths is an orthographic calculation and doesn't account for perspective. Can you show me you now applying an angular size reduction to the targets versus the bulge and then plug that into your calculation? Because if you don't, we'll point out that it doesn't match.
You know, talking about perspective, I've got a perfect little segue. You guys took pictures of the windmills, right? If we were on a flat plane, the windmills, you wouldn't be able to, they wouldn't be lower, right? If you have two objects that are the same height in front.
No. On a flat plane, objects get smaller into the distance. That is a certainty.
So if I have a building and the building behind it is the exact same size and I move away, I can see the building behind it? Is that what you're telling me?
Objects moving into the distance reduce in angular size.
Exactly. So the one in front would be bigger, right?
Yeah. To your
Nathan,
apparent view, something that is in the near foreground and of the same size as something in the background will appear larger. Yes. That is a force of perspective.
Yeah.
A force of perspective?
Yes.
I never heard you guys address meteorites. I've never heard what you guys say about meteorites. I would love
Hey,
to
Dawn
hear
Treader, can you
That's
hear
a
us?
tertiary
I can give an
unorthodox.
explanation.
Hiya.
Did you notice how quick that topic got changed then?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. It's a
Oh,
red
of
herring.
course. No, we're bouncing around a bunch of different things. I asked this
No,
about
you asserted that the picture of the wind turbines going into the distance would not reduce on a flat plane, and it unequivocally would because of something you ignore in your calculations. Perspective.
I haven't done any perspective calculations, Nathan.
Yeah, do you think you live on a sphere, unorthodox?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, right. Well, what do you know? There are standard calculations based on a standard model of a standard globe that you think you live on.
Perhaps a simplification of the model?
I don't care what it is. It's not my maths, so I don't really care what they are. All I know for a fact is that they're orthographic calculations and don't take into account perspective, which is something we all observe. Like we observe in those wind turbines that are definitely built on a flat plane. We have pictures of them on the x-axis, and they're flat, perfectly flat. And yet they still seem to reduce into the distance when you look along them, going into the distance. And they do it in line with perspective. No curve, a straight line, like perspective would do. Something you don't account for in the mathematics when you compare a photograph to these calculations which are orthographic in nature.
I don't have any mathematics, Nathan, so leave that
Yeah, you
out.
do. You think you live on a sphere. The fact that you are a retard and can't do these maths yourselves doesn't alter the fact that you have a standard model. So that standard model is being utilised by other globe heads, regardless of your use of it. So you are a collective you. You are a globe head. You are a globe head.
The people who do the mathematics for flight, they they do the math for a flat plane. I don't see why that would be if this is a globe. You keep saying, oh, they're just making it more simple. Again, why, if I'm going to fly on a curve, on a ball, why are you going to teach me to fly on a flat plane? I don't understand
I
that.
told you it's a simplification. If you've ever studied any areas of science that involve mathematics,
But what about
and multiple variables, it
reality?
gets so
You're talking
complicated
about
very quickly.
simplification. What about reality?
Yeah.
Okay.
What about reality? What,
Because
you can't see past 7 miles. The Earth is the sun's a sphere. All the stars are spheres. The sun
oh
is a
my
sphere.
God.
Let me ask Unorthodox a question.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, my question to you, Unorthodox, is you're saying that avionics teaches pilots to go to the base elements of reality by giving them a false reality to understand because the higher reality is too complicated. My question to you is, what proof do you have that's the reason why they do it? You're saying that that's why they do it, but you're saying isn't proof. So please demonstrate to us. They're saying we're going to present you with a false reality because the true reality is too complicated.
No, I'm specifically talking about the people on the ground conducting, that are monitoring the flights. That's what that paper was in reference to. The flight coordinators. That wasn't really in
Okay,
reference to the
you're
pilots. I don't know what they teach in
obfuscating.
avionics school.
Okay, you're obfuscating
Okay.
my question. My question is, you're saying they give a simple presentation because the complex presentation is too confusing. That's what you're saying. And I'm
They
asking
first
you,
mentioned the globe, though,
so
right?
I'm asking you not simply to state that fact, but to prove that they are presenting a higher complex idea in a simpler, lower cookie shelf idea because the plebeians are too stupid.
It's not that they're too stupid. It's not. It's just it takes a long time to understand. Okay,
I'm
it's
asking
If
you
you're
to
telling
prove
somebody
that.
that you can't
You are
understand something, you're
simply
telling them
chocolate.
that
Hold
you're
on.
stupid.
no. I'm not
Hold
saying
on.
you can't understand. I'm saying it takes a lot longer. It takes a larger amount of time to understand it than it does if you simplify it.
Okay,
So there's
now
no
you
point in
have.
taking the larger amount of time to understand it if you can understand it in 1 week versus 8 weeks, right?
Okay,
This is,
yeah.
this is a
Okay,
real
no, no,
weak
no.
argument.
The question
You
that I
guys
still have
presented it
to.
on your show. That's what it said. The paper that you guys showed proved that they were taking a more complicated model and describing it as a simple model. You're asking me to prove it. You proved it on your show. You showed the document.
No, you're simply again stating something that
You
we would
guys
have to.
showed it on the show.
Okay, in the document, you're saying in the document there is verifiable propositions which state we are giving you this information on a lower cookie shelf so that you can understand it because we don't want to take 3 months to explain it to you.
Yes, that's what it said. But essentially, I mean, you're paraphrasing, but that's exactly what the
Even
paper
though,
said.
even
Show
though you're
us.
going to be a pilot and you're going to fly
No, this
thousands of
isn't for
people
pilots.
around
This was for
and
like
hundreds of
flight
people every
coordinators.
day, right?
This was for
So the
flight
flight
coordinators, not
coordinators,
pilots.
okay, so the pilots that are actually going to be flying people around every day, who all these people are going to depend on this pilot on their lives, and let's not teach him how to actually fly on a curve on a ball the way we actually live. Let's make it simple because he is too stupid to understand it,
No, it has
and we
nothing to do
don't
with
want
being
to
too
take the
stupid.
extra time. We don't want to take the extra time to explain this to him and all the other pilots in the aviation industry. So let's just tell everybody that we're going to teach them on a flat plane. Let's make
What's the
simulators.
purpose of making it
Let's make
overcomplicated? What purpose would that serve?
Yeah,
personally, I think
that
is
no,
that flying around on a ball would be a lot more complicated than flying on a flat plane.
I'm going to tell you exactly why. Okay, and this is just simple personal experience. Okay, I'm just an average guy, and I am not mathematically brilliant. But I can remember in high school thinking physically and logically that it is much simpler to simply understand that the world is flat and not moving. When you step up into the metaphysical theoretical science, you confuse the hell out of me because it's not reality. That's why they present mathematical equations that
Yeah.
are symbolic and confusing so that I will sit there and go, "Man, you must understand this much better than I do." And I'm just going to go, "Okay, you must be
Yeah.
right."
Revert to authority.
There's nothing preventing you from becoming a PhD, a physicist, or a PhD engineer. You can go do that, man. It's just you have to devote a long time to it. So nothing's preventing you from
Yeah,
understanding that
yeah.
thing.
Okay, you're bringing up something that is irrelevant to what I just said. I didn't say I couldn't do that. I'm saying my experience in high school when presented with higher maths in the metaphysical theoretical issue of um, the heliocentric model, it didn't make sense to me. It
Yeah.
meant to simply stick to a spinning surface. And I wouldn't stick to a spinning surface. And if I'm a pilot and I'm flying, I would have to compensate for the curvature. And all of a sudden now you even said it unorthodox, that gravity actually does it for me. Now, my question, let's just, since I brought that up stream of consciousness, my question is to you, prove that gravity actually does that.
I've tried. There's been 3 scientific proofs presented on the show. You guys won't accept any of them.
No, they weren't. When you presented them, we pointed out that none of them were scientifically valid, didn't have a formulated
No,
scientific...
they were perfectly. I followed in line exactly with what you wanted, Nathan. I wrote it down as you stated it, and somebody had it up on the screen. What's his name? Quantum Eraser had it typed up all nice and neat. I took a picture of that, and I followed it to the T, buddy.
All right, show us on screen.
So you're just being purposely dishonest right now.
Well, show us. If you're saying I've mistaken you formulating a correct hypothesis to prove what exactly?
Okay, I've got it in my
Sorry, just what are you proving?
What
are you proving? What are you claiming is proven? Scientific proof of gravity, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's have a look at it.
Well, let me pull up my notes here. And, I'd love to hear what any of you guys have to say about any one of these steps. And I would like to say, at first I wasn't sure if you guys were dishonest or if you were just kind of misunderstanding things. But I know for a fact you are dishonest, Nathan, because I did this to the T specifically for you because it's what you wanted. And then I come on and do it and you say, oh, no, that's not right.
Sorry, you've said all this garbage. Just show us your scientific proof of gravity.
I'm trying to pull it up.
Yeah, come on camera as well, man.
I'm not ready to be presented on camera, okay? I've been working the midnight shift. All right?
Yeah, the usual. Usual.
Right before this.
Yeah, we don't want to see your pretty face. We want to see your screen.
Well,
especially not when we've got Easter on picture at the minute.
Let me get the notes. I'm too pretty for y'all.
No,
man.
I didn't recognize him, Anthony, to start with. Can I just say about any model? Any model has a picture and a language to describe the picture. The language is mathematics, right? Now, all geometrical axioms start with let A be a point of 0 dimension. This is a non-reality. So in order to get the picture to match up with the language, they have devised gravity. All gravity acts towards a null point, a 0 point, the center. And this is what they've done. It's all a mathematical, fantastical picture that's painted for us, but it's an impossibility. We can't relate to any of it in the real world. Let's get real.
I'm still waiting to hear how we can't see past 7 or 8 miles.
Yeah.
In most all cases, right?
How's that?
You're probably the one saying the same thing for 3 years. You haven't entertained any of the flat Earth evidence, and just come back parroting.
I haven't heard any convincing arguments.
You have nothing, man. You just you don't even have your own imagination. You're just parroting the imagination of others.
Let's go back to the point. You just claimed that Nathan was dishonest and that you had taken your notes over certain things, and Nathan's asked to see them. Can we get that point concluded?
I'm getting it ready.
We'll concentrate on that rather than anything else, because that's what we want to focus on.
I am concentrating on that. I can do 2 things at once.
Okay.
Anthony, that's an interesting point about, every geometrical axiom starts with let A be a point, right? And a point is of 0 dimension. There's no such thing in reality as a point of 0 dimension, right? So again, to get the picture to match up to the language, they created gravity, they crafted gravity. So all the mass acts towards the very center, 0 null point. And this is how they've made the picture coherent.
Riley.
Well, whilst he's looking up that previous point,
that's a very good point, Pete. That's absolutely correct. That's also how the WGS-84 was formed. So they establish a point in space-time in order to do this. You're absolutely correct.
And let me just reference something on Cavendish before we get the presentation about Nathan's apparent dishonesty. The only way to prove that there is gravity, given the definition of gravity according to Newtonian gravity, is that it's the force of the attractive force between 2 objects of mass. If one of the objects of mass is the Earth, as claimed, and the other one is a big metal ball, the only way to prove it will be to go and get another planet of a bigger size than Earth, bring it into a close proximal relationship between that and the ball that you're going to try and prove it with, independently vary the distance and the proximity of the big planet, and then you would be able to prove that there would be a stronger force by another planet, because the definition by Newton in terms of the gravity requires the planet, which you've got to try and influence with another planet. It makes it completely and utterly impossible for anybody to validate as true.
That's not true at all.
We could try it, Anthony. What do you think next Monday?
Imagine a setup where you have a dinner plate, right?
Hold on. We've asked you to provide us with scientific proof of gravity, Orthodox. I don't want a conceptual explanation of what a dinner plate does. Just show us the scientific proof of gravity, please.
Yeah, let's see the element of dishonesty as well.
I'm having to reset my password.
It seems like you've got a lot of technical issues.
No, it'll be just about 60 seconds.
Okay.
Take your time.
Yeah, we'll hold the show open.
But, you can get around that, Anthony, by setting it perpendicular to gravity. Right, the force acts downwards.
You can't stop telling us about stuff, right? I don't want to hear another word from you. The next thing I want to see from you, Orthodox, I've kept the show on beyond an hour just because you've asserted this.
Okay.
Really quick question: how far away from Isle of Man were you in your picture?
34. Depends on what you're referring to with Isle of Man, but 31 to 34 miles.
Okay.
Gravity acts to the center of mass again.
I'm still trying to understand how we don't see past 7 or 8 miles according to this guy.
By the way, Newton didn't exist. Newton never existed. Neither did Copernicus, Galileo. It's all storytelling.
Yeah, I agree with you, Pete.
This is where we got
everything. It doesn't really matter if he existed. He had valid points, and we used them today.
Sorry, why are you talking? Why are you talking when you are supposed to be providing us with scientific evidence that you've asserted I've lied about, you've presented and was valid, right? I want to see it on screen, and I want to see the independent variable.
Okay.
All right, so this is the logic right here. The statement was just made. It doesn't matter if Copernicus was real. He made valid points.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Well, it kind of does matter if he's real, because the points that are made are kind of...
No, listen. It doesn't matter if Santa Claus is real. He brings me presents.
Well, it kind of does matter, because Santa doesn't bring them.
You can't have a minor premise that is valid when your major premise is invalid.
Yeah.
If Copernicus didn't exist, he didn't make any valid points.
And let me just say, why isn't this character Aristarchus of Samos on the tip of the tongue of every flat earther? And just bear with me a second. Every ball earther should have been coming along to every flat earther and saying Aristarchus of Samos 2,500 years ago was the first to put the sun at the center and have the spherical ball earth and all the planets spinning around the sun. No, we don't get to hear about him. Question is for flat earthers, why not? It's a game of clues for us. This is what
I've got this ready, by the way.
Great.
Brilliant.
Yeah, off you go.
You have the mic. Let's hear it.
I did this before, but if you have to click on my. I don't know how the Google Hangouts work. I've got a tab open with my iCloud notes, and this is in the right-hand side, starting with step 1, make an observation. Can you guys see it?
No, you need to share your screen. So on the left-hand, you need to find the share screen icon. I think it's on the left-hand side.
I see chat. I see screen share.
There you go. That's it.
Application window.
You just said it, screen share.
Well, it's giving me 2 options: your entire screen or application window.
Pick which one you want.
Let's see here. Okay, it's not just going to show this one tab, I hope. Okay, you are now sharing your screen. Okay. So I've clicked over to my iCloud notes. Can you guys see the iCloud notes?
Yeah.
Okay. So step 1, right? Make an observation. Air pressure changes as you move up and away from Earth. Step 2, ask a question. Why does air pressure change? Right? So step 3, formulate a hypothesis. If the air pressure changes as you move up and away from Earth, then it must be due to the air particles being attracted to the Earth, i.e. gravity. Step
Nonsense.
4, make an...
Immediate nonsense there. It must...
What's immediate?
Yeah, he's asking, could it be? The word must is where Pete's getting...
No, I'm just saying, this is what you guys asked for, so I'm giving it to you.
Yeah,
Let me just
there are other explanations for why the word must would be the wrong word.
Exactly.
You could just say is due to. You don't have to say
No,
must.
you could say might be due to.
Might be due to. Yeah, but it's not just this. It's the other 3 ones. It's the Cavendish, it's this, and it's also your weight changes as you move up and away from Earth's surface. But the fourth part is an experiment. Measure the air pressure as you move away from Earth.
This is based on a presupposition. I'm reading it through my kid climbing all over me. And your scientific hypothesis. Right, break that down for me into what is the independent and what is the dependent variable. Number 3, formulate a hypothesis. Break it down into the independent and dependent variable, please.
Okay, the air pressure is the dependent variable, right? It's dependent upon the height. So the independent variable is the height. In this case, you vary the height and the air pressure changes.
So the height is the cause.
No, your distance away from mass, i.e. the Earth, is the cause, and that is given by the word height, right? So height means you're away from the Earth.
Right. An independent variable has to meet two criteria. Number one, it must be manipulatable by the researcher. Number two, it is your presumed cause.
Yeah, that's right. Your distance away.
So in this hypothesis, if height, therefore your cause is height.
No.
Yes! The independent variable is your presumed cause in this cause and effect relationship. So, height is your cause.
What does height mean, Nathan?
Sorry, don't get me to define these terms in your absolute garbage, right? If you're going to claim this is a scientific hypothesis and your independent variable is height, then height is your cause.
Exactly.
Right. Height is not gravity. Number one, gravity is a presumed effect. So claiming it is your cause is a nonsense statement.
No.
Yeah. Your hypothesis has height as the cause. You are stupid.
Doesn't this fall in line with gravity, though, right? Why does
fall in line with? Science establishes a cause and effect relationship. The way it does it is by establishing an independent variable, something that you can vary as a researcher, and your presumed cause, and seeing when experimenting if it has the presumed effect on the dependent variable. The effect. That's what you're studying in an experiment, right? So number one, most important thing, establish what's causing it. It's a cause and effect relationship. Your cause, your presumed cause, is height.
No, your presumed cause is the distance away from mass.
Right. So the distance.
If you move further.
So if distance is now your, my God, your independent variable is your presumed cause.
That's height.
Yes, but Nathan, you can't just talk about words without context, right? You can't just say, oh, it's height, and height means nothing. Height means you're away from the Earth. You are a further distance away from mass.
Yes. So if away further from Earth, then according to you, it's just the stupidest thing I've ever heard. You're trying to establish proof of gravity, and your independent variable, the cause in your cause and effect relationship, is distance.
Yes, that's how.
Right, well, that's not gravity. You haven't proved a damn thing. You've moved something up and dropped it.
No, you didn't drop anything. We're measuring air pressure. So, right, planes are pressurized. If you go to the top of a mountain, you can't hardly breathe because the air's so thin.
Yeah, because
that's
it's dropped.
Gravity, the further you get away from the Earth, has less
of
an effect.
So, if
formulate your conclusion.
Height, then pressure drops, right?
You get your
not you.
From the
That's
experiment.
your hypothesis. I'm repeating it back to you. This isn't me making an assertion. I'm repeating back to you your hypothesis. You idiot.
You said I assumed my outcome.
You are establishing an if and then relationship. And in your hypothesis, if, represented by the independent variable, is height, your dependent variable being pressure. So if height, then drop in pressure. That's your conclusion if it is validated by experimentation.
Yes.
Right. So, nothing to do with gravity and everything to do with height.
Nathan.
No, Nathan. You asserted earlier, and I've kept this show going for an extra 18 minutes because of you and your assertion that you had scientific proof of gravity. What you actually have is scientific proof of height.
I'm just doing what you wanted, Nathan.
No, I wanted scientific proof of gravity, and you have presented a cause and effect relationship that establishes that if you go up in height, pressure drops.
Yeah, because you're away from the Earth.
Oh, right, so you're going to add in another supposition into this scientific experiment, are you? That's not how science works, my friend. Independent variable, dependent variable, cause and effect.
Yes.
Yeah, no presupposition required. Yeah? If there's something else in this equation, that would be another variable that you would need to isolate for.
I've even got the equation right here. Look, pressure.
I don't need an equation for you establishing if height, then pressure dropping.
Yes, Nathan.
Yeah, I don't need that. I don't need you to establish that.
That's the only argument you got? Because that doesn't really mean much.
Argument I've got. This is your argument.
No, I'm saying anybody else. I mean, no. You're trying to tear this apart by saying, "Oh, well, it's just height." Well, you gotta have a little context here. You can't just say, it's global, glop. That doesn't, mean anything. You have to take it in relationship to the Earth and everything around us, right?
How do we? That's what we do in science, is it? Is that what it does in the scientific? Show me in your scientific method where it says we do that.
It's just simple logic, Nathan.
Sorry, just simple logic or a scientific method that you're supposed to be adhering to, you absolute dick.
I'm a dick.
Yeah, you can laugh about this, but I find what you're doing offensive. I find what you're doing a perversion of reality. Yeah? This presupposition that you have, that you're inserting now whilst laughing at me, after I, for the second time, tear this garbage and you asshole.
You haven't torn anything in it.
Yeah, I have. This is not a scientific proof of gravity.
But nobody else has said anything.
No, I agree with him. I agree with Nathan. Your variable is height. Therefore, your independent variable is height. Therefore, the effect it has on your dependent variable is that it changes the pressure. So therefore, your cause is height.
Exactly.
So not gravity then. So when you said I've come on and proved gravity by scientific means, what you actually meant to say was I've proved absolutely nothing.
No, I proved if you move away from Earth, the pressure decreases, meaning there's less...
Sorry, what's this meaning? Why are you strapping this onto the end, you stupid dick? You want to show me in this method where it says strap on an extra conclusion, in this method on screen, which I've kept up for this reason?
Wait, hold on. Does height
Not
mean
hold
you're away
on,
from Earth
show
or
me
not?
where you strap
Can we
on an
agree on
extra
that?
conclusion in this method, you total dick. Show me it. Point your mouse over it.
Over what?
Where it says to strap on an extra conclusion.
That's what we do as humans, right? We don't...
Oh, that's what we do as people. So it's not the scientific method that we're doing here. This is just you as a person. Well, I'm going to assert that you as a person are a dick. And you're not following the scientific method. You're just laughing when we point out what a dick you are, because you haven't done anything like prove gravity.
This took me a while to do, thank you.
Oh, wow. It took you a while to prove nothing. You're a dick. Well, you've wasted your time, dick.
It falls in line exactly with
Do you
what
understand
guys
how much
asked
time of your own you've wasted, you stupid dick?
See, this is what I'm talking about. You guys are purposely dishonest. You asked specifically for this process, and I'll do it exactly to the T, and you're telling me no.
You said air pressure decreases with height, therefore gravity.
To adhere to this process to prove
nonsense.
the radius of Earth, or in this instance, gravity.
There's an issue because you're not seeing the if height, therefore pressure.
I understand what you're saying.
You're saying if height, therefore pressure equals gravity, and that's not the position.
No, it's not if height. It's if you're away from the Earth.
But you're varying your height.
Yeah.
Look, I don't even mention height. If the air pressure changes as you move up and on, I just highlighted it.
Listen, see what it says step 4. See what it says step 4, experiment. Then you got in the line underneath in bold. Read the next line.
Yeah, that's right. Height means you're away from Earth. The air pressure is dependent on height.
Read the next line.
In an experiment, a variable manipulated by an experimenter. Which one?
The one above it.
The one above. That's why I started reading. You said no. The air pressure. This one right here.
Yeah, go on.
The air pressure is dependent on height.
Right.
I could easily say the air pressure.
Your line there should be the air pressure is dependent on gravity. And you need to vary your gravity as your independent cause.
No, you can't vary gravity.
Yeah, that's what an independent variable is. So while you can vary height and then assert afterwards that it's actually gravity, that would be outside of the scientific method, wouldn't it now, you dick?
He makes the leap of faith. Leap of faith.
That's why you have
Why are you saying no? We are not asking you a question. We are stating this as fact. to a dick.
No,
Don't say no. We are not asking you a question that requires an affirmative or negative answer. We are telling you, you are a dick.
Hang on, Nathan. Look,
You just proved the whole point, bro.
Nathan,
I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, and I think you not getting it will most definitely be the point I round this show out. We know you don't get it. Like most globeheads who don't understand you need perspective, you don't get it because you are a dick and an idiot. So yeah, with that, I will round out and say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this show. If you hated the show, you know exactly what to do. But if you liked the show, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you have not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!